Welcome back. It has been a busy politics day in South Africa. Ekurhuleni Mayor Mzwandile Masina has called on President Cyril Ramaphosa to step down. This as the ANC's National Executive Committee meeting of the ANC is currently underway. The meeting began yesterday afternoon and went on through the night, discussing, amongst other things, the latest developments in KwaZulu-Natal.
I don't know the reasons behind what Comrade Tony would have said, and I'm sure the leadership will come and explain to us through the statement, and then we'll take it from there, because I'm sure there should be reasons why he opted to ask the president to step aside.
Do you share his sentiments or not?
Well, it's not about sentiments. I'm sharing the sentiment about the resolutions. Everyone who's got a matter before the court must step aside.
So he's got a matter with the public in court?
Well, if there is a matter that is before the court that involves the president must step aside.
Well, for more on this, our reporter Samkele Maseko spoke to Ekurhuleni Mayor Mzwandile Masina.
Ekurhuleni Regional Chairperson of the ANC, Mzwandile Masina, is picketing outside St. George's Hotel in what he calls that the ANC must implement conference resolutions as all leaders charged with corruption or in any court of law must step aside. I'm going to bring him in on the significance of this particular picket that he has embarked on. Mr. Masina, why have you decided to picket here outside St. George's Hotel?
Well, this is where the National Executive Committee of the ANC meet as and when it convenes. As you know, that due to COVID, the leadership is meeting online. So I decided that I should come here symbolically, because this is a usual venue that hosts the National Executive Committee meetings.
The ANC in recent times, particularly during this COVID-19 pandemic, has received a battering when it comes to allegations of corruption that have bedeviled the party. What is actually going on at the high levels of alleged corruption that is said to be taking place in your party using state resources?
Well, I think that we have received a letter from the president as general membership, where the letter spoke firmly about the wrongs that are happening. The reason why I thought I should come out as a member of the ANC is to say, not in my name. People can't commit allegations of fraud and corruption and we are all bundled into one. So I am saying that the leadership has actually taken resolves in the conference, the 54th National Conference, who are clear on how we should deal with issues of allegations, how we should deal with issues that are before the court. So the leadership needs to be firm and implement across the board, not across factional lines.
You've got a number of ANC leaders who are currently charged with bribery, corruption. I'd name but a few people like Bongani Bongo, Etani Mutise, on animal cruelty on a farm in Limpopo, in the northwest rather, on her pigs. You've got the president when it comes to the sealing of the CR17 donations. Should they all step aside?
Well, the NEC is sitting now. It has to look into each and every case, its merit, and those that are transgressing this resolution that I'm talking about, we should be able then to say to them they must step aside.
Including the president of the ANC?
Any member who has transgressed, because there is no member of the ANC who's above the ANC. So any member of the ANC who has transgressed these resolutions of the ANC as we know them, we are saying the member must assist the party, because the ANC is really being affected. You know, there is hashtags like Futsek ANC, people are tired of corruption and this and that. So if we can't act as members, or we just say every member of the ANC is in the wrong, we are making a big mistake. Let's be clear that those that have done wrong, there is a provision in the resolution on how they should be treated, and we are calling on the leadership to ensure that they exercise exactly that, not along factional lines.
Tony Yengeni has called on the president to lead by example and step aside. Do you share the same sentiments?
Well, in my view is that what is critical is that there is no member of the ANC who's above the ANC, including the president. So whether it's the president, is myself, is a member from anywhere, if you've got a matter of fraud and corruption before the court, you should step aside. I'm not sure whether the president has got that matter or not, but if he has to step aside. If it's me having an allegation of corruption that are before the court, I have to step aside. That's what the resolutions are saying. So there is no member of the ANC that is bigger than the ANC. What we must make sure here is that the application of rule should be consistent, should be across the board, regardless of as to who commits the offense, if indeed there is an offense.
The president president is in court right now over Busasa, the sealing of those particular documents of his donations to the CR17 campaign. Should he step aside on the virtue that he's embroiled in a court litigation with the public protector over the sealing of the CR17 funds?
Well, the NEC is sitting now. They should be able to guide us in terms of the outcome, because we are clear that we have to follow the guidelines that have been set. If it's an allegation from the media, you go to Integrity Commission, failure which you must be taken to a DC. It's non-negotiable. If the matter relates to fraud and corruption and is before the court, you should step aside. That's what the ANC says in terms of its own resolution. So we don't want to reinterpret those because it is me today or it is Mr. Yengeni and so on and so on. Every member of the ANC who's got a matter before the court related to fraud and corruption, because it might happen that some girl you are before the court for drinking and driving. I'm not sure how the ANC will place that matter, but we were very clear that issues that relate to fraud, corruption, you should step aside until such time that you are cleared. So we didn't say there's a special provision for special people. There are no special people in the ANC. We all join the same organization. We all belong to the branch. So we must be treated the same. So the NEC should guide us in terms of their deliberation as to how they have concluded on the matter of the president. If indeed Comrade Tony called for him to step aside, I'm sure they will also share the reasons with us, because we are not members of the NEC. So we might not know what exactly would have led him to call the president to step aside. There might be others who might have called others to step aside who will want to know as membership of the ANC. What we can accept generally is for us to be painted with the same brush of corruption, because we don't want to be walking across here who are painted with brush of corruption. Here's accused number one. We are standing here to say there is many of us who have not done anything wrong. In an event we do something wrong, we should be able to follow the resolution so that no one is above the African National Congress.
Should we see mass exodus of people stepping aside from Monday after this weekend's NEC of the ANC?
The ANC must cleanse itself. We need the ANC of Oliver Tambo, the ANC that represents the aspiration of our people. We need the ANC that is going to carry us from generation to come. The ANC can't die in our hands. The ANC is not individual, but it is the party itself. We have to work hard to ensure that we can protect the credibility of the party. As you have seen, successive elections, we have suffered losses because the trust deficits between us and the community. It is therefore important that the ANC must stand firm with regard to issues that makes our society to frown upon the very same party, the African National Congress.
Thank you very much, Mr. Masina. That was Masina, the regional chairperson of the ANC in Ekurhuleni, saying any leader of the ANC who is charged with fraud and corruption must step aside, and other issues of leaders like President Ramaphosa, who is in court over the CR17 campaign funds, must also seek clarity after ANC, NWC and NEC member Tony Yengeni called for him to step down.
Well, political analyst Levy Ndou joins us now via Skype to discuss this and more. Mr. Ndou, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for talking to us. The ANC NEC that's currently underway, we usually await with bated breath what the outcomes will be. Do you think we'll be getting the outcomes soon enough this time, taking the environment into consideration?
Good afternoon, Desiree. Good afternoon to the viewers at home. I think this is a very sensitive issue to be discussed by the ANC. But whether they like it or not, this is the matter that the ANC has to confront. I love the tone by both President Ramaphosa and Mzwandile Masina that says that all corrupt individuals, or those that are facing the laws or that are in courts, should actually step down. I'm also aware that within the ANC, you have got those who do not want this matter to be discussed. You have got those that have benefited out of corrupt activities. And at the same time, you have got senior ANC members that are being mentioned in a number of commissions that are mentioned everywhere on matters related to corruption. And if the ANC wants to remain relevant to South African body politic, they need to deal with the issue of corruption and indeed come with a solution that will best suit the ANC and the entire population.
We spoke to an analyst the other day from KZN, Mr. Dube, who said this was all manufactured outrage. Nothing is going to change within the African National Congress. Cyril Ramaphosa and Ace Magashule in the background will still hold hands and form some sort of system in terms of the way forward that will suit the ANC and not necessarily the South African public.
The ANC has to do itself a big favor. When they met in Nasrec at the conference, there was an emphasis on unity. And the unfortunate part is that we haven't seen that unity manifesting within the ranks of the ANC. The cracks in the ANC, the former Jacob Zuma's faction and the CR17 faction still exists. What I see with Mr. Masina today, it's exactly part of those factions. I expected the tone of Mr. Masina to be the same when Jacob Zuma was in power. But the positive part of it is that he has actually joined hands with those that are saying, let us fight against corruption. The time in the ANC has to pass wherein certain individuals are associated with certain groups. And unfortunately, in the ANC today, we have got two big groups. The group that is for corruption and the group that is fighting against corruption. And those groups are clear, they are seen by everybody. And it will take someone that has got all the guts to deal with these matters over this weekend and ensure that the ANC comes out of this NEC united, but more importantly, having the trust of everybody. And that, I think that is what the ANC needs now. Another aspect for me is that the ANC should avoid a situation where individuals are constantly protected at the expense of the party. And if the ANC continues doing that, they'll actually be moving towards their own downfall.
What has been your analysis of former President Jacob Zuma's letter?
I think President Zuma is trying his best to remain relevant to what is happening in South Africa. But on the other side, there are those who will say he wants to frustrate the NEC meeting over this weekend that has to focus on issues that deals with corruption. But also at the same time, he also reminds the ANC and the president of the ANC about the resolutions of the ANC, which some of them he also did not implement. That the ANC has got very good resolutions, very good program of action, which translate to policies, but the ANC is always unable to implement. Maybe let's go back to what happened in 1994 up until today. The challenges that we faced in 1994 are the same challenges that we still face today. President Mandela, President Mbeki, President Mutlante, President Zuma, and now President Ramaphosa are still talking about the same challenges. We need the ANC that is able to say, let's have a box to tick on the successes that we've actually made. Unfortunately, the ANC has not been able to deal with job creation. The ANC has not been able to deal with housing problem. Our health system is in crisis. Our economy is in crisis. Now we've got a bigger problem of corruption. And I think it is time for the ANC to say, what have we done on matters that associate us with the people, including the land question?
You're talking about the former president trying to remain relevant, but is this a way of testing the waters to see how much support there still is for his politics?
President Zuma has got nothing to lose. He has been the leader of the ANC. He has got a lot of challenges that he's facing, legal challenges. But President Zuma seemed to represent those that are still angry of the outcomes of Nasrec. And if I was President Zuma, I wouldn't have written that letter. I would have decided to go and have a discussion with the ANC members in private. But then there are a lot of people who are in the NEC of the ANC, who are also in government, who have unduly benefited out of corrupt activities under the leadership of President Zuma. And I think, and I suspect, that it is not only President Zuma alone who wrote this letter. He had the support of certain people who are also sitting in the NEC today. Because, as I said, Desiree, corruption is a very sensitive discussion within the ANC, and there are certain senior members of the ANC who are not comfortable when matters of corruption are being discussed. And that is why it is not a surprise that former President Zuma would write a letter on the eve of the NEC wherein discussions on corruption are supposed to take place. The revelations at the Zondo commissions tells you that some sitting in that NEC are actually on the other side of the law and corruption.
Yeah. 3 letters that came out in the public this week, one from the president to ANC members, one from the Integrity Committee to the SGS Mahashule, which was then denied by the party spokesperson Bulemabi, and another letter from Jacob Zuma. What are we to read from senior party people and structures releasing letters to the public and not dealing with it internally? Does this give us a sense that there's frustration within, that there is nobody to listen to what either leaders, former leaders, or structures have to say?
Maybe we should all first look at it in the context of COVID-19, that it is not easy for people to meet and have discussions. But also at the same time, I see a president who is extremely frustrated, President Ramaphosa. When he came into power on the ticket of the fight against corruption. And he is aware that there are some people that he's serving with in the NEC and in government who are seriously implicated in corrupt activities. But also at the same time, he's aware that South Africans, ordinary citizens, and those within the ANC who are against corruption are worried that the actions against those that are corrupt, there is nothing that is actually happening in terms of dealing with those people. But also at the same time, he is trying his best to say, ANC members and ordinary citizens, I am your president and the president of the ANC, but I've got a bigger problem. Because my suspicion is that each time you have to talk about corruption in the NEC, there should be certain individuals who would want to say as well, like the ANC Women's League president said, if you point a finger on us on matters relating to corruption, you don't have to isolate yourself because you're also corrupt. And I think that is the posture that those that are implicated in corruption would try to say, we are aware of the corrupt activities that are leveled against us, but we're also saying that there's also a corrupt element in you. And I think what they want to do is to come with a holistic approach to say, all of us are guilty, and then we need to come with a holistic approach. But another aspect is that the ANC has got notable individuals that are implicated in corrupt activities. And what has ceased to exist in the ANC is the matter of serving the people in the ANC and stepping aside. None or very few of the ANC members have actually volunteered to say, my name is mentioned elsewhere, let me step aside and allow due processes to take place. Unfortunately, that is not the case. And that is why you now have got the Zandule Gomede issue, you have got the VBS issues, because leaders of the ANC who are implicated in corruption would still want to continue running the party and also part of government.
We now hear that former President Kgalema Motlanthe might be brought in as part of the head of a council of elders who will look into corruption in the African National Congress. What does this tell us about the capability of the Integrity Commission?
How many commissions and committees is the ANC supposed to have instead of dealing with the actual problem? Kgalema Motlanthe, for me, represent a group of people that are very much vocal in the fight against corruption. The Integrity Commission of the ANC has been established to deal with matters of integrity. How many people in the ANC have always tried their best to challenge the outcomes of the Integrity Commission? What value is the former President Motlanthe is supposed to bring on matters that relates to corruption? What the ANC for me has to do is to come with the best strategies to fight against corruption, and if needs be, those that are implicated in serious corrupt activities should be isolated in the interest of the party, because these are the people for me who are doing a lot of damage to the party, and if they're not isolated, they will continue to do even more damage to the party. And that is why the support of the ANC is actually going down day by day, because the ANC is very soft on corruption and is also led by people that are actually corrupt.
Let me ask you another question. Executive Mayor of Ekurhuleni Mzwandile Masina, what do you make of his picket in Irene, re-emphasizing Tony Yengeni's call for President Cyril Ramaphosa to step down as well?
Part of our democracy is to allow people to be able to express their views. But I think the ANC has got its own principles that relates to how you communicate within the party. If Mr. Masina has seen it important to go and picket, he might be exercising his own democratic right. But I think the ANC leadership might take it differently. But I like the views that he's raising. He is talking about the fight against corruption. And if people that are implicated in corrupt activities or people that are corrupt.
All right, we seem to have lost that line, but let's bring in now Professor Lesiba Tefu. Professor Tefu, thank you so much for talking to us today. We're not necessarily talking to you about is Mr. Ndou still there? Okay. In finalizing our conversation, Mr. Ndou, I wanted to bring in Professor Lesiba Tefu as well. When we look at a current matter today, Action SA has been launched. Mr. Herman Mashaba making a whole lot of promises to South Africans. Professor Tefu, I just want you to listen in, because this is a conversation we're going to be having. But Mr. Ndou, your thoughts about this launch as we finalize our conversation with you?
I think as our democracy is growing, it's important to have to allow citizens to actively participate in the body politic of South Africa. And for me, I think Mr. Mashaba has got a lot that he has to prove. He did not have sufficient time as the mayor of Johannesburg. And I think he has identified a number of challenges that he needs to fix. It is good for South Africa. And I think as an independent person out of the DA, Because for me, I think he got out of the DA because of the frustrations that he got in the party. He would have sufficient time for himself to express himself in a manner that is able to provide whatever challenges that we face in South Africa. And I like what he emphasized. Corruption, corruption, and corruption. And that is the message that we get from all different political parties in South Africa. And I want to say, good luck, Mr. Mashaba. Let's hold hands and ensure that corruption is actually defeated in South Africa.
Let's thank you for your time this morning and bring in Professor Tefu at this time. Professor Tefu, thank you so much for your patience. I know you've been waiting for quite a while. In our previous conversations with you, you've lamented the fact that our political system really needs reinvigoration. With legislation now in place for politicians to be able to approach elections as individuals, and Herman Mashaba coming up now, introducing his new party to us, Action SA. Do South Africans eventually have an inclusive party?
Yeah. Where do we start? I think let's start with Martin Luther King, who said, "There comes a time in the affairs of men when silence is betrayal, when silence is acquiescence, and when silence is no longer an option." I think Mashaba had the call of the people on the ground, the concerns, the complaints, and a sense that something new must be born. In philosophy, they would talk about an interregnum. The old is taking too long to die, and the new is taking too long to be born. And what someone said to me, let 1,000 flowers bloom and 1,000 ideas contest, and nothing beats an idea whose time has come. It does look like South Africans are yearning for something new. Maybe Mashaba might be the one who's yielding a new dawn, hopefully not a false new dawn.
He said, "I hate corruption. Corruption cannot be fought with rhetoric and platitudes, but action." It's the conversation of our times, isn't it?
It is. And I think people have had enough of platitudes. People have had enough of talks. Mashaba is talking about action. Let's hope he will act on the action that Action South Africa is about.
Yeah.
Let's give him a fair chance. The little bit of pedigree he has in relation to Johannesburg does say to me he did the best he could under difficult circumstances. Only in Africa you find your opponents going to the extreme, even to the detriment of the electorate in order to unseat you out of government. And that's not what happens in mature democracies. Let's hope and hope that his will be the alternative the people are yearning for. Indeed, 19 million people didn't vote last year. They were despondent, they were unhappy, and they didn't see an alternative to what they were offered by political parties of the day. Maybe this could be one that can bring them back into the fore.
What were your thoughts about the optics, Professor Tefu? He was saying he's 38 years married, been very consistent. We've seen the successes of his businesses. He said he was 22 years old when he got married. Did that look enticing enough for South African publics and South African voters?
Look, for the young, especially those who are aspiring to be effective, meaningful, and relevant citizens of the South, his story is inspirational. And I'm one of those who has always taken a lot of comfort in reading autobiographies and biographies. because you get to have a sense of where people come from. I mean, when we were at university and high school and we read about Mandela and where he came from and he rose to what he became in the world, you can only say, I hope I could be like him or as close as possible to him. As a businessman, he has done well. As a politician, he was not given a chance at all, especially by certain parties that got closer to him with time because they said he was a political novice. Maybe South Africa needs a political novice. Maybe South Africa, like the USA, needs a businessman. Hate him or like him, Donald Trump can decide, can take action, and he does put America first.
Yeah.
And he has made a mark, in a sense, for his own people. We may not like him, but let's wait and see. And I think, given a chance, some people might say, in Mashaba, there is a possibility that a non-conventional politician might yield something different for us.
His launch speech sounded very presidential, and most analysts and most of us are sitting here thinking the launch is just timely for the local government election, but he seems like a man gunning for 2024 for the big one. What are his chances?
Well, look, I'm always intrigued by the electorates. Right now, as you and I are speaking, South Africans are angry at the ruling party. But I have no doubt if we were to go for an election next week, they would still vote the same party. And that's where my notion of political literacy vis-a-vis, right, political education are different. Political literacy is something else. You are driven by policies, by principles, and by values. That's when I speak about political literacy. And you can't be bought with hampers. You can't burn the schools and destroy the roads. And the following day, you go to vote for the same party that you at least did everything wrong in its name to express disquiet. I'm here talking about the community of Wani. That is a good example of political literacy for me. Political illiteracy. Because and that, given that, I'm saying it is up to the electorate. Einstein said to me, a sign of mental sickness begins to show itself when you repeat the same formula over and over again,
yeah.
expecting different results. After 26 years, the electorate of South Africa is called upon to look at itself. Whether it is Mashaba, AWB, PAC, you name them, I don't care. But it is the electorate that must look at itself. Please allow me to say what George Orwell said. The electorates or the electorate that elects corrupt politicians, thieves and imposters are not victims. They are accomplices. That is George Orwell.
Yeah. Prof, let's go back and unpack the speech, the launch speech itself. He touched on really everything, on the economy, the creation of jobs, on justice, giving a big emphasis there, on private prosecutorial style, on crime, saying he will target drug lords and criminal syndicates, the legal immigration system, that's his favorite topic, of course, saying that we should make the expectations of our own citizens priority. He touched on international relations, even talking about Zimbabwe there, but mostly the political system, saying South Africans should be able to vote directly for their presidents, the constituency-based system not working, we must bring in a primary system. Just your overall thoughts of the important topics he touched on.
Look, there are too many things he mentioned, and I would say just zero in on 3 or 4 and concentrate on that at least until the next election 3 years from now, right? Work on changing the Electoral Act. That's number 1, my hobby horse. At least we are getting there. Number 2, he spoke about cadre deployment. Meritocracy should be the hallmark of a democratic dispensation. Put merit at the center of your appointments. That's 2. Number 3, do away with the tender system. I repeat, apartheid was an odious, abominable, right, and despicable ideology. But there were certain systems that worked. They had state capacity. Build state capacity and do away with that. And then one thing about him, and he raised it again, you are not going to win as a nation as long as you have these porous borders. Down there, the people are moaning and are groaning. Yes, people must come to South Africa as we go to other countries. But there must be protocols, and those protocols must be upheld. But as is, when it is a free-for-all, there is no way that there can be no tension. Remember, scarcity is the source of discord and conflict. When there is scarcity, even in the family, there is no order, there is no peace.
Yeah.
Deal with the porous borders of South Africa. Manage migration, and that's what Mashaba is saying. And perhaps one thing, again, that people would remember, respect the property laws of the land. I mean, this hijacking of properties in Gauteng and elsewhere, Mashaba did something about it and made a dent. And many people are saying, we are thankful that our properties now are back into our hands. The law enforcement officers also, under him, began to find their teeth and confidence that here is a man who's working with us. And he was there, right there, in the thick of things, even in the dead of the night, with the police trying to reclaim the city of Johannesburg.
So, Prof, you don't launch a political party for the sake of it. You're hoping to garner votes. Let's just look ahead a bit. We're in 2021 or we're in 2024, but perhaps just closely 2021. The people who will bet their luck on Herman Mashaba and vote for him, what realistically can he do for them? Because as it's been seen with previous political parties, your introduction into the system only garners you so much support. And that can be limiting sometimes.
Yes, but look, what you offer, and also the team around and about you, and the consistency in terms of the vision, and how it resonates with them. One example, almost all the townships that I know of and he referred to had industrial sectors, and they were viable, teeming with activity, and people got jobs. And I look around, I walk around, and I see dilapidated structures that can be revitalized and create jobs for the communities. And I hear him say he would look at that. It is no longer about platitudes. It's what you do, in what the actions must speak louder than words. I think let me also mention, for the benefit of the students out there, that Shakespeare also said, too much words with too much sound and fury, but without meaning. Yeah. And this is what, at least of late, when people listen to the leadership of the ANC, they hear more words and fury without meaning. And if he can translate his words into meaning, into visible actions, and go back into those townships and help revitalize. He's a businessman, and somehow he also worked there in Babelegi, in Hamaskra. When the people see what you are doing, they surely may follow or will follow.
Can Action SA take advantage of the disarray we're currently witnessing within the African National Congress?
I have no doubt. Look, it's very difficult to form a party, especially in South Africa. He must expect many challenges. There are people who are also going to at least infiltrate his party. Even state institutions may be used to undermine his party. We know there is sufficient evidence to that effect, right? So he must be prepared for that. But I think there are so many within the ruling party who are so unhappy that might want to work with him. And there are equally so many who are unhappy in the DA who might want to work with him. And out there is about 19 million people who didn't vote, who are looking for a new political home. They might say he is worth a try.
Yeah. Prof, at the beginning of our conversation, you said South Africans were angry. I know we speak to you as an academic and as an analyst, but as an individual South African citizen, how are you feeling about political developments in the country?
Well, I'm immensely disappointed, but at the same time, maybe I'm not very honest with myself and with you, because there comes a time when a liberation movement cell by day has come, and it can remain in office either by hook or by crook. And that time has come for South Africa, and unfortunately, it is all in the hands of the electorate. I feel we are in an interregnum. The old is taking too long to die, and the new is equally taking too long to be born. Perhaps on this day, the 29th, the 28th of August 2020, the new might have been born.
I know you've said it already, and I want to ask you, what do you mean? Do you mean it's taking too long to die, or is it taking too long to adapt?
Yeah. Yes, the philosophical expression goes as follows, right? An interregnum. The old is taking too long to die, and the new is taking too long to be born. And I'm saying on the 28th of August, 2020 in South Africa, perhaps the new was born.
I hear you clearly, Prof, and can't finish our conversation without talking about the other current conversation in the country. Those 3 letters, first from the President, and then from the ANC Integrity Commission, and then a letter from former President Jacob Zuma saying that as an ANC member, he's heeded the call by the current president to respond to challenges in the country. How did you internalize or digest these issues?
Well, the issues raised there need the attention of the ruling party, and in the forefront must be the president. I think the question is, why write the letter? And I know he himself was unhappy, Jacob Zuma, when people wrote a letter. But I was heartened by the response of the 101 stalwarts who wrote that letter, that we have been knocking at your door, Mr. SG, and the top 6, and you have not responded. That's why we have resorted to this option of going public. Well, Jacob Zuma, he might have not knocked at the door, but you know, as I do, he's a wily politician. He deliberately wanted to sow division and to put the conference in disarray, and to some extent has succeeded. 1, just an hour before the commencement of the proceedings, Madame Gumet steps down, right? The letter comes in. But prior to that, Lungisa also writes a letter that says, Mr. President, look at yourself. You are equally responsible for where we are, and if others are stepping aside, you must step aside. So you can see, today you have Masina. There is that consistency to get the conference in disarray, to end up with some compromise and consensus that says we'll look into the matter and we'll set up a committee and Mhlante must come in. And I don't think he is an acceptable person, Mhlante, already, because I heard them complain when his name was touted that the partner gained so much, almost 100 million, one way or another. So that, and these are the tactics they use against each other to tarnish each other's image, right? And weaken your position. So his moral authority is so enormous, and I would hope that he doesn't get drawn into this it might tarnish his good name. Let them battle it out. I expect that time has come for them also to accept. The glue that held them together is no longer strong. If they have to part ways in any form possible, so be it. And they are likely to do that. It's just a matter of time.
Prof, it's interesting that you call him a wily politician. Is he depriving the ANC faithful of finding in him an elder who has been through leadership?
I think he's wanting, in terms of moral authority, to be regarded as an elder worthy of elder statesmanship. Remember what went with him prior to him assuming office, and even when he was in office, and what he's doing right now as an elder. Surely, I'm no longer sure that he carries that authority that one can really consider him as an elder that can meaningfully make sense, to the extent that people may say, let's sit under a marula tree together and listen to the old man's advice.
So, Prof, there might be excitement, as you have stated, about the launch of this party that Herman Mashaba says is not an opposition party. It's bringing, as you say, a new dawn, a real new dawn into the country. But whatever he's launching can only be actualized or realized in a much later stage in the history of the country, or in the affairs of the country. At the moment, South Africa is dealing with COVID-19, the fight against this pandemic, and then come up these conversations about massive corruption. What can we look up or look forward to in the new week in South Africa that can encourage South Africans that governance is still in place and there's still a lot to look forward to?
It is within the president, Ndate Ramaphosa. It is all in his hands. I think I did say that even if we were to be in office for 6 months but put South Africa on an appropriate trajectory, history and posterity might look kindly at his grave. Even today, I want to believe, if it is biting the bullet, so be it, Mr. President, in the interest of South Africa, not your party. It is within your hands. It is all about corruption. It is all about corruption. And he spoke so well yesterday. But unless you deal with the human factor, the caliber of people next to you, next and around you, who are going to implement, right, that program, again, you will be calling for another commission to look at the corruption that shall have gone with the infrastructure budget. The president must just be courageous enough to say, let those whose hands are not clean and there are skeletons in their closets, as Madam Batamini would speak, go, just do the right thing. The law must take its course. He mustn't be involved in that. But let him just, as a president, guided by through the eye of the neutral document, tell the people it is enough here and no further. And if I have to go, so be it. And I think he said something along those lines when responding to Tony Yengeni, that if I have to go, so be it. But at least my country shall appreciate the little that I have done. Former President Thabo Mbeki, who was a very good CEO, he was fired. Yes. And the 4 who championed his demise, 3 of them went to apologize. And I know you and I and many others out there are celebrating him. And we think he did a good job. He did under difficult circumstances, and he was ready when he called upon to step aside. But even Ramaphosa, if he can make peace with the idea that even next week I may not be a president, but let me do the right thing and serve the people of South Africa, not for a party in disarray, a party that can no longer be united. The glue that used to hold it together for me is too weak to sustain it.
Yeah. Prof, we pondered out loud earlier on about whether Action SA can take advantage of the shenanigans happening within the African National Congress. We didn't speak about what challenge they pose to the Democratic Alliance, to the EFF and other political parties?
I think maybe it's not for me to say much about the options the electorate has. I think the electorate, about 19 million people, didn't go to vote because they thought the menu that they were faced to was not appealing enough. I'm not sure if the Mashaba menu or the addition of Mashaba might be attractive enough, but let him go there and do the best he can and be seen to be a man of action. He might be the answer, right? He might be the answer. But the people of South Africa said, we have got about 4 big parties, IFP, EFF, DA, ANC. With that, 19 people still decided not to vote. Maybe it's time somebody comes into the fray and put up a party or a program that can pull them back.
So Herman Mashaba, so to speak, has put his colors to the mast. What can we expect to happen with Mmusi Maimane? What do you think will be his next move?
I think there is good chemistry between him and Mmusi. I'm just thinking it's a matter of time. There are too many so-called movements, right?
Yeah.
Parties, Unite X, there are just too many to be meaningful and effective, right? They must just accept. Everybody who thinks carries a little bit of weight, one way or another, wants to form something for him or herself. And again, some people might say, is it about the self or is it about the people? If indeed it's about the people, maybe it is about time they form a united front or a united democratic front as it was formed yesteryears.
Prof, my apologies because we're online. I can't have offered you some water or a cup of tea during this long conversation. But we thank you for your patience and your time.
Yes, I invite you to virtual lunch.
Let's look into something like that. Thank you so much for speaking to us today. Developing stories, the outcome of the ANC NEC and the development of Action SA.